Recent transformations in the gaming industry are pretty significant. What was once a leisure activity targeting kids and young adults is now a multi billion-dollar industry where many brands and entrepreneurs invest. The latest reports show that the gaming industry's global revenue sustainably grew to $347 billion in 2022. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Analytics Insight podcast, where we talk about the ever evolving tech space. And I'm your host, Priya Dialani. Now, this growth is not merely an historical trend. While already a formidable force, the gaming industry will continue to grow as it adopts blockchain technology. Now, today, gamers are rapidly shifting from traditional games to the ones integrated with these technologies. But why? So let's welcome Andrew Wagner, the CEO of blockchaingaming.com, to learn more about the role of blockchain gaming and innovative dynamics of tokens and their stabilization. Hi, Andrew. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing good too. Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you with us on a podcast. And I think we're going to explore some fantastic angle towards blockchain because it's involved in gaming. So let's get started. I think the first question, what our listeners would like to know is if you could tell us more about blockchaingaming.com, what exactly it is, its specialization.
Well, blockchaingaming.com is a domain I bought many years ago, back when it was still cheap, because I'm super into blockchain and I'm super into video games. And I feel that it's a very important combination that will probably be a first mover when it comes to technologies and industries that adopt blockchain technology effectively. I believe games will be one of the first. So I got the website, and right now it's mostly informational. But we do have one revenue generating product, which is our hedge fund, which has a standard 2 and 20 model, and it's focused only on blockchain based video games. And so that's what we're mostly known for at this time.
Great. Glad to know about it, Andrew. Thank you for sharing that. So you mentioned that you are a blockchain enthusiast as well as a gaming enthusiast, and I think you have been also in very early Bitcoin adopter. So if you can also tell us more about yourself, your journey till date, and your contribution towards the company.
Oh yeah, I've been into Bitcoin since before we had altcoins, back when it was just Bitcoin around $1. I used to work for the Bitcoin Co-op in Vancouver, so I'd run around getting businesses to accept Bitcoin for payment. I'd speak at conferences. I've been on Netflix and CBC podcasts, so lots of general blockchain adoption and promotion I've done. But in the last several years, I've been way more focused on the gaming side of things. But I'm still known for some other activities here and there in the crypto space.
Pretty impressive, Andrew. It was fascinating to listen to your journey till date. So moving ahead, I think immersive, personalized experiences and enhanced transparency are two core reasons why blockchain in gaming is becoming increasingly popular, and it's more popular especially among the Asia Pacific and the North American regions. Consequently, businesses in the gaming sector are also collaborating with a custom blockchain development company to craft and create some intuitive blockchain powered gaming solutions. So how do you think the blockchain gaming has evolved till date, starting from its advent, and if you could also highlight its fundamentals?
Well, early on, when we first had blockchain games, they were a lot more niche. Some of the first ones used Bitcoin via counterparty, which is like colored coins, kind of like means of putting your own tokens on the Bitcoin blockchain. But over time, blockchain gaming really moved over to the Ethereum ecosystem because the devs there are more likely to embrace non-financial applications for blockchain, whereas the Bitcoin devs, historically anyway, have been more focused on finance applications. So there was a gradual movement towards Ethereum, which really accelerated in the CryptoKitties era, which is, if you go on Wikipedia, you'll see that says, last I checked, that CryptoKitties was the first blockchain game. Although that's not true, because the first blockchain games are many years older than that. That was about the time when it entered the public consciousness, I believe. Around CryptoKitties is when the wider world started to really pay attention. And since then, it's especially with NFTs, since then it's really taken off. And I'd say NFTs have been the focus of developers and producers in the blockchain gaming space so far. Although I don't expect that to be the case forever, because there are a lot of other aspects of blockchain gaming that I'm personally excited about.
Okay, great. I'm glad to know that. Since I have started learning about blockchain and crypto, I always thought that CryptoKitties was the first blockchain game, but I think you kind of broke the myth here by telling us the reality that it's not the first crypto game. And yes, I think with a slowly gradual shift towards NFTs, I think slowly that's going to be the major focus now in the coming years. And like you mentioned, that there are certain other aspects that you're expecting in the blockchain gaming, and we'll of course definitely talk about it in the, moving ahead. So I think while one of I think the highlight of blockchain gaming is that while players can create and share content with blockchain gaming, but they have little control over how it's used or monetized. They spend hours making worlds and upgrading in-game items that add massive value for a studio, driving player retention and enjoyment, while also benefiting from the rewards. But how can we address this challenge and empower players with real ownership and more fairer rewards for their creations? I think that's when tokenization offers a very transformative solution. So I want to understand from you, Andrew, what are some of the key factors that influence the value as well as the stability of tokens in the market, and how do you think did they kind of enhance the gaming experience?
Well, yeah, as you noted, a lot of functionality for blockchain gaming so far has been around, we call it true ownership, the idea that tokenizing the item gives the player more control over their game property. Whereas with central server based tracking, it feels, and that's an important word to use, the item feels less like it's yours if a dev can flip a switch and make it disappear on you. And the feeling aspect of that is important. Um, and the value. So, when we look at the tokens themselves, a token has value in the game world if players need to use it. So, if the token's an NFT, then it's probably like a sword or, some armor or some kind of item that can enhance their character or gameplay abilities. And so the NFTs derive their value from those capabilities. Some might call that a utility token. The same is often true of the fungible tokens associated with blockchain games. Most of them have at least one. Fungible tokens, again, probably have some utility or should have some utility. And typically that involves needing them to play the game. Some people would use the analogy of quarters at an arcade, and or an other. There's a lot of analogies you can use, but basically, as long as the tokens are used for play, for accessing the service, then they have value if people want to play the game, if people want that service.
Right, yeah, I think I kind of align my thoughts and aspects with you, because while I'm not an expert in this field, but of course after listening to this, it definitely makes sense that how tokenization is kind of ensuring true ownership, and how it's kind of changing the gaming experience. So I think the Web3 games, and they're typically driven by the blockchain and the cryptocurrency integration. So they promise to revolutionize the gaming landscape with a focus on true digital ownership and play-centric economies, like you just mentioned. But one of the most critical and recurring challenges hindering this revolution is the issue of hyperinflation within their in-game economies. So this is just for my listeners that hyperinflation is a condition of rapidly and excessively rising prices, which erodes the purchasing power of in-game currencies and destabilizes the delicate balance of supply and demand. So while this is one of the challenge, we want to know from an industry expert like you, how do you think that we can combat inflation in play to earn games?
It's a good question. CryptoKitties and some other major games have had their downfall in the inflation that occurs when players are earning too much. and then selling their earnings. But there are interesting new innovations I've seen in the industry and how to deal with that problem. One of them from a game in our portfolio called Rising Star has had a great solution. And if you can look at their charts if you want, and you'll see it's worked pretty well over time. What they've come up with is a two-tier token model, which now other blockchain games are really starting to catch on to, and it has its roots in the traditional mobile gaming industry. So this is easier to explain if you played a mobile game, like anything on your phone, Candy Crush, whatever. But if you have, so many people have played a mobile game by now. Maybe this analogy will be helpful. But a lot of the games will have two types of currencies in the game. One is like not as cool, and you can earn it every time you beat a level. And the other, you often have to buy through like your credit card plan, or like that's how they make revenue. And the opportunities for earning the other one in game are limited to only so many per day through like a daily quest, or just in some other fashion, they're made way more limited. And so games like Rising Star have replicated this model, but with cryptocurrency. So it's like a two-tier crypto model. So in Rising Star, for example, there's Star Bits and Star Pro. Now, Star Bits you can earn from almost any mission you complete, which puts a lot of inflationary pressure on Star Bits. So I don't have many of those in our hedge funds portfolio. We have Star Pro. Star Pro, they can only a limited amount are made per day, no matter how many missions people run. And if players want them, they have to compete and outbid each other for them. In this sense, hyperinflation of the Star Pro token does not occur, right? No matter how many players join the game, the daily production is static. And so, all that'll happen is the cost of the second token in the first token will go up. They'll outbid each other higher and higher. And this has been a great model, and it's the model, and frankly, it's the model on which the mobile game industry already rests. And the mobile game industry does fine. It makes revenue. You've already noted earlier in the podcast the massive revenue generated. A lot of that's just from the mobile gaming industry now, all by itself. So they've clearly found a model that is stable and functional. So it kind of makes sense that they could be tweaked and tokenized, blockchainized to the Web3 era. And I'm pretty excited about that because, it's been doing well for our hedge fund anyway. So
Yeah, right, definitely. And I think, well, thank you for explaining us how, the blockchain enthusiast can combat the inflation. And of course, the two-tier model, crypto model that you explained, definitely works. And even we are hoping some more capability developments here in this space. In the earlier, you mentioned about that NEFTs have been a major focus, and when somebody thinks of NEFT, they kind of relate it with art or something which is related to art. So I think now blockchain project creators also are finding inspiration in arts and are using blockchain to change its creation, distribution, and perception. So many new projects have also appeared in the last couple of years, and it kind of still dominates public debates in the art community when you're talking about blockchain in the art. So the main discussions are about the benefits of blockchain, which I think enables new levels of transparency on an artwork's history, as well as an inevitable proof of ownership. So now, since we're talking about blockchain gaming, how do you think that blockchain can influence video games as an art?
it's a great question from my perspective, because I do believe video games are art. Art is any medium designed to impart an impression or emotional experience upon the viewer. They're meant to instill a feeling or sensation, and that's what art does. And games are no different. Some games are simple, like Pong or your average Call of Duty shooter. But some games go really far with their art. They hire a music team, they get artistic graphical style directors, and some games will really try to impart a specific artistic experience upon the person playing the game. Although I found that until now, a lot of blockchain game developers haven't been appreciative of that. A lot of them have been from the dev side and not from like the traditional game making side of things. And I think that's unfortunate because going forward, I see lots of opportunities to offer unique experiences to players using blockchain technology. Primarily, when you use the blockchain, you obsolete the need for a central server. And this has a wide variety of implications, some of which are not yet fully appreciated. Without a central server, for example, you don't need mods or admins for your game. And this has already had interesting consequences. Like Undercoin was actually one of the first blockchain games back in like 2014, and it ran completely decentralized. It had no server. The whole game world was on the blockchain. And what that meant was that there was no one to control it, police it. There's no referee. And we actually had interesting, I guess you could say, sagas, stories. At one point, a guy took over the world of Hunter Coin. I mean, I don't know if it's a guy because he was pseudo anonymous, but he took over the world of Hunter Coin, and we all had to band together and try to defeat him in the game to try to take back the game world, but we lost and had to fork the blockchain to kind of tweak. Basically, he was using bots, which is an ongoing problem in fully decentralized games. But the feeling it instilled, the feeling of like a Wild West, when the game world kind of runs in a peer-to-peer manner organically without arbitrary control points by a central power, it can make the world feel very organic and alive, because the way it evolves is quite natural. You set the conditions and rules, and then you let it go, and then you're kind of hands off when you're a blockchain game developer. So I think that can really lead to very fascinating user experiences that can change the way a game feels for a player. And that's very important from an artistic perspective, how we make the audience feel, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, really. I think when I was preparing the question list to ask to you, when I came across this question, I felt that it's kind of a very tricky question. I think a lot of listeners or blockchain enthusiasts cannot relate video games as an art. And well, thank you for that explanation. Also explaining that with an interesting use case that you mentioned. And eventually, when you're talking about gaming, I think it's all about giving fascinating and unique experiences to gamers. And with blockchain, that's what I think gamers can feel. Like you said, it's more organic and alive. So that definitely makes a lot of sense here. Let's probably talk about or explore a different angle towards blockchain gaming. Now, when you're talking about online gaming, I think it has recently undergone a lot of regulatory changes. I mean, these changes have definitely brought a lot of clarity, leaving many gaming companies uncertain about how to comply with these new requirements. Now, one significant impact of these regulatory changes is a noticeable drop in customer retention rates throughout the gaming industry. Now, from the moment a player downloads an app to the point of signing up, companies have witnessed a decline in customer engagement. So, how do you address these regulatory challenge and also ensure compliance in this evolving industry?
It's a good question. I mean, compliance is difficult for every blockchain based business, frankly. For games, we have the similar set of problems. No, actually, people who do money laundering have used video games for a long time, even before blockchain. World of Warcraft gold has been heavily used by the mafia for money laundering purposes. And that's something that game developers have to think about and come up with solutions for. Personally, as investor or hedge fund manager in the blockchain gaming space, I'm supportive of games adopting compliance measures. A lot of people who have been around in crypto for many years, like me, just hate regulations all the time. At this point, I'm getting older and I don't want to get in trouble. So I encourage compliance with local norms and regulations for companies in our portfolio. And generally, I think that if you're really making an effort and if you're sincere in your efforts to keep bad actors out of your ecosystem, then I think law enforcement won't target you too heavily. By which I mean, like, that they know the difference between you accidentally enabling a money launderer and you doing it kind of willy nilly and being negligent and doing it on purpose. You know, you should make an effort. Is what I'm saying. An effort, a little bit of effort goes a long way. I also say in gaming and blockchain gaming, I try very hard to avoid the perception of our games being gambling. And so that involves limiting the use of randomness in games, especially if the game function allows earning in a play to earn fashion. If there's a play to earn capability, then we don't want it to work such that the player has to pay something and may or may not win according to something percentage chance. That's gambling, right? We want to avoid that perception. So we try to avoid making games operate in such a way. And I think it's fine. You know, going forward, if you have a fully decentralized game, um, then it can be more difficult to square that with the compliance rules expected of us. I expect hybrid models to come out in the future. And in fact, a fully, like truly fully decentralized game is not 100% possible anyway, a lot of the time, because of the problem with AI. So we don't have a decentralized Turing test, by which I mean we don't know how to tell if the player is a human or not. And without that capability, you can take over and ruin any game, right? So regular online games have a server with a admin guarding and watching for bots. If you take out the admins, who watches for bots? And so even a fully decentralized game, I think in the future is if it's online and MMO, a massive multiplayer online, then they're going to have some kind of control point, not just for the regulators, but for to prevent bad actors such as those who would use AI, like gold farmers. You know, we don't, and that's actually what destroyed Hunter Coin, one of the first blockchain games. The Dominator who took over our game world created thousands of player characters using AI. And so there has to be at least a little bit of control. And at that point, we may as well make some efforts to comply with certain regulations. I mean, I don't like it. I'm a pretty libertarian guy, but I mean, it's video games. It's fine. I don't see it's a big deal, and if you don't like it, you don't have to play the game. You know, it's not end all currency. It's a choice for you, and but yeah, a lot of what I'm talking about is not just gaming. This is a problem for the whole blockchain industry.
Right. Yeah, I think you definitely made a fair point here where we all know that complying with regulations can be a headache, and especially when we're talking about gaming industry, that's the last thing probably anybody would want to do. But again, you said, it's very important to have some kind of a control point for bad actors and also limiting how we use the randomness in games. So I think that's very important. But when we're talking about the NFT market, I think even the NFT market has been prone to wild speculation with some assets selling for eye-popping sums, while some others like go to like zero. So while this has generated buzz, it has also led to concerns about the market stability and potential for such bubble-like behavior. So as more games embraced these tokenized UGC blockchain networks will need to handle a massive influx of transactions, So if you don't have that sort of infrastructure that can't scale to meet demand, we might risk congestion or high fees and even degraded gaming experience. And that's probably what we don't want in the coming years, since we are already focusing on giving like a more fascinating and unique experiences like we discussed before. So what advice would you like to give to entrepreneurs who are looking to enter into the token and blockchain gaming industry?
I think I'd give a lot of the standard advice you'll hear from other crypto professionals. Do your own research, not your keys, not your coins, all the standards. If you're coming into gaming in particular, I mean, it helps to understand gaming. You know, Warren Buffett once said you should only invest in what you know. That's why I do gaming. I learned to read from video games. I've been playing from a young age, so that's what I do. So just be careful and don't invest your life savings unless you're really, really into video games. And like, even then, maybe not your whole life savings. But in terms of like, how do you find a gem? How do you find a promising token? I'm still very, no, I don't chase meme tokens. So if you're new, that can be tempting. Look at some of these coins just explode overnight, 50%, and you can feel like you start to expect that all the time. And it's not realistic, and chasing it 100% of the time can lead to calamity if you're not careful. I like to go for coins with small market caps. You know, if it's got a small market cap, it takes less money entering its ecosystem for its market cap to go up, meaning smaller investments lead to greater ROIs. There's more room to grow. So I still target small market caps. And sometimes we might miss out on a random meme coin that goes up 1,000%. But over time, it's been highly successful. Our fund has gone up, I don't know, 10, 20 times or so. I have to check today. It's been fluctuating in the last month or so. And that's, in a few years, we are very patient. People try to know everything. And I pick I look at a game and I decide, is it worth more or less than the market cap of its tokens right now, in my opinion? If I think it's worth more than the market cap assigned to it by the free market traders, then I buy it. Quite simple. And, it can be really hard to know how long that can take. So I don't try to tell you what will happen when. I will maybe tell you what will happen, or I can tell you when something will happen. But no one can tell you both. It's like Heisenberg's uncertainty principle for investing. I was a physics major, so I think that's funny. But you can't know both what and when will happen in the investing world. So I decide what I think will happen, and then I wait patiently. If you can't afford to wait patiently for many years, you should be careful and reconsider what you're getting into, because a crypto winter can happen at any time. And then your waiting could be years. But overall, yeah, just be careful, do your own research. I'm going to give you some pretty standard advice that others would give you as well.
Right. I hope our listeners took a note of it. And one last question for you, Andrew. What do you think, or any specific trends that you think or foresee will take over the token market and blockchain gaming industry?
I'm seeing a move towards larger projects. So in the gaming world, uh, game budgets have grown just exponentially. They're like a real, like the main games that are on like Xbox and PlayStation, they often have budgets in the hundreds of millions of dollars and take several years to make. These games now are huge. They're like, by the amount of time and effort put into them, the biggest form of entertainment. And what that means is that all the crappy games came out first. So when you look at the market today, you're seeing smaller games, little mobile games, turn-based, like games you can play on a website. And that's because the more advanced games, the lingo in the gaming world is triple A. or maybe it's quadruple now. I can't even remember. A bunch of A's. So like the blockbuster title games, most of those are still in development. And therefore, you can, if you look at the industry now, it has a kind of amateurish feel because a lot of the blockchain games are just web based or possibly mobile apps, but mostly web based. But this is not the permanent future. There are some pretty serious developers making some pretty ambitious blockchain games. For example, Ember Sword has been approaching launch. I think you can play it. It's got more playtests available to the public now. But games like Ember Sword are more, similar to World of Warcraft, like real MMO immersive online game experiences with can have advanced graphics and art styles. And there's so many games like that just haven't hit because they take years to develop, haven't been released yet. And I think once they do, it will help us gain credibility. Right now, I think some of the developers in the blockchain world have hurt blockchain gaming's credibility with the legacy players, like video game art critics, the magazines like Game Informer, IGN. There are a lot of video game critics who review games as an art form, and until the big, really impressive games from the legacy, like acclaimed developers are released, we're going to keep getting flack for our lack of artistic merit, compared to non-blockchain games. But I see that rapidly changing as these large games development has been completing and they approach release. So that's something I'm super excited about.
Right, yeah, and I think as blockchain becomes more mainstream, we can expect a seamless blend with traditional gaming platforms, enabling true ownership of in-game assets. And likewise, the pay-to-earn model will also evolve, offering diverse economic incentives and sustainable ecosystems, while decentralized development and governance will empower communities to shape their gaming experience. So eventually, I think we'll have enhanced security, probably even anti-cheat mechanisms and transparent governance in order to foster a safer and a more equitable gaming environment. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. It was a pleasure having you with us on a podcast, and I think we explored some interesting facts and angles about blockchain gaming and probably how the future is going to be.
Yep, I was happy to be here. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrew. So, this is for our listeners. Stay tuned for our upcoming podcasts, and you can view all our previous podcasts on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.